Hello and welcome to the Life They Live podcast. I'm the host, Nina, and today I'm having a conversation with Valérie Bogart, a French creativity instructor. She teaches creativity at university and is the co-owner of Art for Me, an organization that specializes in team building through art in the workplace. This month, Valérie and her colleague, Carole Cesareo, published their first book titled Libérer Sa Créativité. As the book is available in French, we wanted to record an episode in English for all of you who wish to grow your creativity at a personal or group level. We often get confused about the true meaning of creativity, and we tend to associate this skill mainly to art. But in the episode, Valérie explains that problem solving is creativity. No matter our profession, we all have to generate new ideas and solve problems to a certain extent. At the end of the episode, Valérie will share with you some exercises you can apply to gain confidence and grow your creativity. Hi Valérie, how are you doing?
I'm fine and I'm very happy to be here today with you.
Yeah, I'm also very happy to be doing an episode with you. For the ones who don't know, Valérie is my mom, so I'm doing a podcast episode with my mom. It's quite special, especially since I'm kind of interviewing her, so I feel like the roles change, like now I'm the interviewer and you're the interviewee. It's kind of interesting. I'm very happy to be doing this episode with you. And of course, thank you for being on the podcast.
I'm glad to be here, and you're right, it's a bit funny, but I like it that way also.
Yeah, it's very nice, and it's special for both of us because in a few years we can, look back and listen to the episode. So it's nice to have this little memory. Of course, I already know a lot about yourself, but I'm gonna act as if I don't know much so that you can introduce yourself to the audience. So obviously the first question I have for you is if you can introduce yourself in a few words.
Yeah, of course. I'm Valérie Bogart. I'm almost 50 years old. And I have 2 kids. I'm French, and I lived during a long time in France, and I was working in the marketing field. Approximately like 12 years ago, we moved abroad. We went to Mexico, then the United States, and then Germany. So like almost every 3 years, we moved from one place to another. And of course, it changed my life and your life also a lot. And I had to explore new paths, and in a way, it also helped me to find really who I was and what I like.
Yeah. So that's a lot of things to talk about, but I always tell you that I'm very proud of your professional background because, like you just said, we moved at some point every 3 years, and you manage every time to start something new in each country that we moved to. So, for example, in Mexico, I don't know if you considered it a job really or an activity, but you had certain activities, and then every time we moved, you had to reinvent yourself, stop what you were doing, start something new. And I think there's a lot of, honor in that also. So it would be nice to talk about that because maybe some people are in your situation and might like to hear what you have to say. But I also think it's a nice example of how, like I said, you can reinvent yourself and how you don't always have to stick to what you studied, because you're going to explain that probably right now. But at first you did a business school,
Yeah.
and now what you're doing right now, it's not what you studied, so you learn also a lot by yourself throughout the years. So I think it would be great if you can talk a bit about your professional background for those reasons.
Yeah, so you're right. I study business, and I started in like a very, let's say, traditional job as a marketer, and I work in very famous companies, and it was fun, but in fact, I never realized how creative I was. It's like as if I suddenly realized this when I arrived in Mexico, and I had time to do what I really liked.
Maybe because also those types of jobs, like you were behind your computer all day, basically, right? Kind of.
Oh yeah. It was lots of statistics and
so you don't really have
you
don't really have the chance to even explore your creativity. So maybe that's why you didn't even think that you were a creative person, simply because you just go to work, you come back from work, you have to take care of the kids, you go to sleep, and then you wake up again, and then
it was a kind of routine, and it was okay, but
you just didn't consider yourself creative.
No, in a way, I had some skills that I didn't really use, and then I had that opportunity when I lived abroad to do new stuff, new things.
So why did you have that opportunity, and what did you do then?
Basically, I took photography classes, and also I was lucky because one of my neighbors was a painting teacher, and I started to go there to paint with her, and I realized I really like that. I won't say I was especially good at it, but I really was at the right place, and I felt it was funny, and all of a sudden I made connection, and I started to help a non-profit organization design their products to help them to sell them. I dare to do stuff I never did before.
Yeah, that was for sure. I remember that very clearly. So basically, just to explain quickly, you went from, like we said, having a job where you spent most of the day behind the computer, marketing, to suddenly designing, if I'm not wrong, like you were designing bags, kind of clothing, stuff, with indigenous women, right, in Mexico, and then you were selling them. So I remember you were doing like kind of napkins almost, like bags.
Cushions.
What were you doing? Cushions, stuff like this. So it was a big shift. So I'm just saying what you were doing exactly to give an example of how it really drifted to something new, and you were designing kind of the models, the patterns, and stuff like this.
I was drawing the patterns on the fabrics. I was going to buy the textile and making the association, and lots of those women couldn't really read, so I had to draw and give like clear indication for people who couldn't read, and it was a really challenging process, and also it helped me to get more involved and to learn Spanish. And of course, I was not a lot behind my computer. It was really handmade production, we could say.
Like you said, it had different benefits, such as learning more about the culture, having social interactions with the locals, helping communities and stuff like this. So it's not just that you were making products, but you actually, your entire lifestyle kind of changed.
Clearly I didn't really care about maybe not care, it's not the good word, but for me the most important stuff was to be in connection with those women, to try to help them, and that's how the story began. And I could have done something else, but it was what I don't know why, but suddenly I thought, okay, I can help them because they need help, and I started to do this. And in fact, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a stylist and
like fashion
designer. And okay, then I realize why now.
I think that's really admirable. And just to explain why I was mentioning that you had to change every 3 years. So when we left Mexico, obviously you had to stop that. And then we moved to the United States. Then you started something new, like a photography kind of project where you used to take photographs with another group of women in Detroit.
We called it Looking for Detroit. We had a collective. We were 5 women, and it was also a very nice project. And for me, the goal was really to discover that place, to connect with people, with local people.
Yeah.
And it's incredible what they do by their own to help the community to grow. And what I thought was, okay, let's take picture of those people and let's tell the story. And that's how we started with the project, and we end up with selling
The photographs,
photographies.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it's really great what you did, because it's not easy to move so often, and then you could have just said, okay, I'm just staying home and that's it. But which is, fine for people who want to do this. But I think it's great that you decided to, always start a new project and learn more about the culture in which you were living, learn more about the people. And even though you knew always that you were going to leave after 3 years, you still always took the initiative to start a project that you always had to come up with, always kind of a artistic kind of project. And then when we moved to Germany, then you started Art for Me, which changed a lot. So if we do the history of Art for Me, it might take a while.
We will do it
but
quickly.
it was
Yeah.
basically like you started by doing, how can you say it, like art classes
Yeah.
with other
workshops. Yeah, like painting workshops, and let's paint all together with people who think they don't know how to paint and they don't dare how painting. I was there to help them and do it like literally like step by step, and in 3 hours drawing something like abstract, but sometimes also not so abstract. But the reason why I wanted to do this was also to help those women, because we were also in a very international community with people, I would say, feeling alone and like homesick. And I thought, okay, it's a nice way to connect people, to make interaction. And that's always my first aim, I think.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to spend some time on your professional background is because it really shows how you developed your creativity over the years. So you're going to explain to us in a second what is the definition of creativity, because we might sometimes not understand really what creativity means. But what I wanted to say is that in all those situations, you had an objective and you had to find a way to reach that objective. For example, in Mexico, you wanted to help the indigenous women. In Germany, you wanted to bring expat families closer together so that they wouldn't be lonely, for example. So that was always your aim, and then you had to create a project to reach that goal. So I think that's, creativity, that's an example of creativity, because you have to always develop the project to reach your goal. And that's why I spent some time on your professional background, because it also led you to where you are today. So it's nice for the audience to understand why you are where you are today. So like I was explaining, you just gave us different examples of creativity in a way, but could you explain what is creativity? So like just a definition, your definition of creativity.
Yeah. So Einstein, for example, would say creativity is intelligence having fun. And I like that quote a lot. And let's say the traditional definition would be creativity is finding new ways of solving problems and approaching situations. And it's not restricted to artists at all. And I really want to underline this. Creativity can occur in almost any field. Of course, it happens in art and music, but it also happens in mathematics, in science, in business, in education. And so anywhere there are problems to be solved, creativity can be found.
Yeah. One thing that you really taught me, I think, is that creativity is problem-solving skills. And I think, like a lot of people, I had the impression that creativity was kind of linked to art, For example, when we think of a creative painter, that might do some type of artwork that, we've never seen before, that's out of the ordinary, then I would say that's creative. But it's true that I think we link creativity a lot of the times to more of the art fields, but not necessarily to scientific fields. But let's say you're doing research on a specific topic in a scientific field, and you need to design a research method, then that's creativity. Like anything can be creative when it involves problem solving skills. So I think that's important that we're highlighting this, because it shows that you don't only have to listen to this episode. If you consider yourself an artist, creativity is important in a lot of different fields. So that's really one thing that you taught me, because I kind of had the impression that creativity was linked to art. And that actually makes a nice transition to what we're about to do, because in your book, you have at the beginning a set of questions, like a quiz to take for the reader. How would you describe this quiz? What is it kind of
like
for?
To know more about creativity, and also because lots of people have false ideas about it, and so we wanted to do this to explain like that. For example, we are all creative. I have some example for you. So Nina, we can play together, and could you please answer that question? Do you think there is a link between creativity and well-being?
Yeah, so before I answer questions, I need to say that obviously I've had conversations with my mom, so I might be a bit biased, but we did think it was interesting to do this exercise because, again, it's kind of to, in a way, break stereotypes about what creativity is. So I will answer truthfully, but I have some ideas about the answers. So I do think creativity is linked to well-being, in the sense that, again, I'm going back with the artist, but for some artists, expressing their creativity could be a way for them to express themselves, express their feelings, and that's automatically linked to creativity. However, I would say that I don't associate so many well-being aspects to creativity. Again, I think my idea of the link between creativity and well-being is quite restricted. For example, me who has anxiety, I wouldn't think that, okay, being creative is going to help me, be less anxious. It wouldn't be my first thought. So I do think it's linked to well-being, but I don't think creativity is a word I would associate to so many well-being issues in a way.
But in fact, they are linked, and it's also what some psychologists discovered. There is an entire field named positive psychology that explores that combination, association, and how to be happy. A lot of time when you are creative, you are doing creative stuff, you enter in a kind of state of flow. That's a state where time flies and you are so concentrated you don't realize you are taking maybe 2 hours to do something, and that's a state of well-being. So it's linked, and also it's quite obvious in fact, but as we said, creativity is a way of finding new solutions. It means it will help you to solve your daily problems. And if you know that you're gonna find answers, solutions, or to your little problems of your daily life, of course you are less stressed, and you can also collaborate in a better way, and that's the main idea, and that's the reason why I really link creativity to well-being.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question because, like I said, in some aspects I would link creativity to well-being, but when you hear the word well-being, creativity, I think, doesn't come to your mind so easily. So I think it's nice to highlight the fact that there is a strong link between creativity and well-being, because maybe we need to be reminded of that sometimes. So
yeah,
I think it was a nice question.
Yeah. And so, for example, the second question I would ask you was, do you think that to find new ideas, you always have to think out of the box? Because we hear that a lot, think out of the box.
So I don't think that you have to always think outside of the box to find new ideas, but I would say that most of the time, yes. I mean, my answer would be that most of the time, to find new ideas, you have to think about things that people have not thought of. So then in that case, you have to think outside of the box.
Yeah, maybe we could define what does it mean exactly, think outside the box. But in fact, it's not always true, because we saw with studies that, for example, having a deadline forces you to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the case. And also, I wanted to underline that if we are all creative, we also are all different. So I would like everybody to know themselves better, and also to learn when they are creative and in which circumstances they can find new ideas. It's like having the right context. What would work for you won't work for me, and so on.
Mm.
So it's not like a recipe that you have to follow. You have to find your own recipe.
Yeah. Well, those were two nice questions. And yeah, I think they show how we might sometimes have false ideas, if I may say, about what creativity is or how we can be creative. So I mean, that's the whole goal of this episode also, is to show the audience that we can all be creative. So I think to anyone listening to this episode, it might be interesting for you, to think about the field in which you work. Again, you might be an engineer or a teacher or a hairdresser or waiter, I don't know, whatever. And I think it might be interesting for you to think, okay, in what way can I be creative at my workplace? So now that we talked about what is creativity, can you explain to us how creativity is expressed? So you mentioned quite clearly that we're all different. So we don't express creativity the same way.
Exactly. For some reasons, we are not all sensible to the same senses. Some of us might be more like connected to the hearings, some others to the viewing, smelling, and touching. And this is important to know yourself also, because it will lead you to a kind of different way of expressing your creativity. And also we discovered there are like different thinking profile, of course. I won't spend lots of time on it. You can check this if you want more in depth to know yourself better. For example, you have people, I would say like me, who are called ideators.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the people having lots of ideas, connecting the dots, making a lots of association.
Okay.
Like maybe sometimes we have too much ideas.
Yeah.
It's like plenty of them.
Yeah, you need to organize them a bit.
Yeah, because you have so many that you don't always decide what you're going to do. So you have different kind of people. You have implementers, for example, who are more into getting the job done. So they would be more manual persons. They would like to do the prototype and test a product. And so you have to find where you go naturally, where you are best at.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important because what you do normally, naturally, it's okay, but maybe you can still develop some other fields of your own creativity and cultivate it to avoid maybe having just lots of ideas and never concretize them, or maybe try to work with people who would help you concretize them, and vice versa.
Yeah, so knowing how your personality is does help, I think, in many aspects of your life, not just creativity, but of course creativity then would be one of them.
Yeah,
also
because sometimes you don't link creativity to personal
Personality.
development
Yeah.
or personality. When I discovered that, I was like, okay, it explains also lots of things
like
that
for
happen
example
for me.
For example, someone who might want to create a brand but has so many ideas and then they don't know which ideas to choose, like do they want to do a coffee brand or a tea brand or a whatever brand, then you're saying, okay, well, have you thought that creativity might actually, thinking about your creative self might actually help you find your solution? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and in a way, each profile has its own advantage and also disadvantage, and knowing it helps you to maybe avoid doing always the same things in the same way. And when you know that you are the kind of person having lots of ideas, and when it's hard for you to take action, well, you notice it and you can challenge yourself. It's also what I wanted to explain in that book, that you can cultivate and you can develop your own creativity. It's like a muscle. So if you want to run a marathon, for example, you won't just do it in a day, and you will train. And it's the same with your brain and your creativity. It's also lots of hope to know that, okay, I can still learn, I can still grow my own creativity.
Yeah, so you don't have to be stuck and say, okay, I'm not creative, so whatever. You can develop it. So just, I think it might be fun for the people listening to know maybe what profile they identify with. So do you want to say what are the other profiles that you haven't mentioned yet, just quickly, so that we can go over them?
So you have the clarifiers, and they like to search the facts and understand, and they take time to analyze a situation, and they go in depth. So they would be like Sherlock Holmes, for example, that kind of personality. So you also have the developers. Those one concentrate on one ideas in particular, and they transform it in a solution. So it would be, for example, like Thomas Edison, the one who always search for the bubble, and he is very famous because he tried and tried and tried and never
like stopped. He never abandoned.
No, he's the kind of guy who never abandoned. So he's very famous because he said, I haven't failed, I've just found like 10,000 ways that don't work. So that's the developers.
Okay.
And we have the implementers who get the job done. So they are more into action. They like to give birth to a project and deliver a result. Yeah.
Okay.
So we talk already about ideators. So I think we have the four kind of profiles explained.
Well, don't hesitate to tell us on Instagram if you identify with one of the profiles. Again, I think it's interesting to look at creativity that way, because there's a lot of websites where you can like see which personality you have and stuff, but I never thought about creativity.
Yeah, you have profile test, but this one, the one I mentioned, you have to pay for it. So if you want, you can check. It's Foresight Thinking Profile.
Okay, great. And now that we know which profile we are, what are the benefits of creativity? We kind of talked about it a little bit, because we talked about how basically creativity is solving problems. So obviously when you solve problems, you can have a lot of benefits from that. But I would like to know what would be your answer to someone who would ask you, okay, why should I buy your book? Why should I be more creative? Why should I work on my creativity?
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's really the soft skill, or one of the main soft skills in this constantly changing world. Adapting has become a major issue, and that requires us to find solutions. The World Economic Forum said that creativity is one of the main competences needed. For people who don't really know what soft skill is skills that helps you to have good relationships with others. So you have communication, critical thinking, creativity, those kind of skills, and they are in a way opposed to technical or hard skills, like learning Excel, those kind of skills that get very quickly obsolete. So of course we say that creativity would be useful to adapt yourself, but it's not only to adapt yourself to being maybe more zen. It has also other benefits, because it will help you to collaborate. Nowadays we need others. We can't really build the world and find new ideas all alone in our home, and I think we are facing lots of challenges, environmental challenges. Well, we can think about lots of main issues, and I think creativity is really helping us to find solution all together.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Many benefits. Yeah, well, that's good to know. And I think to end this podcast episode, now that we've talked about what is creativity, how creativity can be expressed, what are the benefits of creativity, it would make sense to end on a part about how to be creative. Hopefully by the end of this podcast, we have now delivered a message, which is that you can be creative no matter who you are, what your profession is, what your hobbies are, and there are many benefits to being creative. Of course, we're all busy, so there might be people who might have more time to work on their creativity. That's why I thought it would be nice to give two types of exercises. One that might be, more easily done, and one that might be for the people who want to spend more time working on their creativity.
Yeah, okay. Let's do it. It's kind of a nice challenge also, to try to help others. And I thought about doing small steps. For me, creativity is also having fun and playing. I will recommend you that little exercise to take time at the end of the day to think about 3 things that happened to you and that you especially like. Write it down on a letter, on a paper. If you want to buy a book, you can do this. And then try to draw it, but in a very simple way. Like
sketches.
More like sketches, kind of pictograms, and very easy stuff that maybe a kid could do. And we're not here to
judge the technique.
Judging the technique, but more to express yourself in a different way. Like try new things.
And so it could be like anything that happened in your day, from more maybe important events to smaller events, such as I ate an ice cream, something like that.
It can be really like today I had my yoga session, my yoga class, and it was so nice. I feel so relaxed right now. Or I had a lunch with a friend, those kind of stuff. And try to visualize, to draw it, and because it will help you to develop your brain. We won't have like classes about brain, but it's like when you use logic and more intuition, you connect really your brain. And a psychologist named Tony Buzan is the father of the mind mapping and all the visual thinking, and it helps you to be more active, to concentrate, and it helps you to learn more. So it has lots of benefits. So it's a nice way to try.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like change your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
But slowly.
And that can help you, well, first of all, maybe think more positively, but also be more creative in the long term.
Yeah, in fact, creativity is also linked to optimism. When you are creative,
it might be hard to be creative if you're like
if you're a
pessimist.
Because a creative person will say, how might we? What crazy thing could I actually do? So you have to imagine it's possible. It's how it can be powerful if you think, okay, I will try it, but I'm sure it's not going to work. Of course, it's not going to work. So it's like if you are learning a new language, no? Being more positive, and also take time to visualize through the small drawing. It will help you to get that skills also. And maybe later on you can do a mind map, and it's a new field. If it's a new field for you, I'm quite sure you will love it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very optimistic.
Yeah, it's very funny, in fact.
And the second exercise.
Okay, so for the second exercise, I will give you a technique to help you unlock your creativity. And this is find something new during 21 days.
So find something new to do.
Yeah, find something new to do. So give yourself the opportunity to explore new topics, to be curious, and also avoid doing always the same things, and try to do things you are unfamiliar to, and you have to accept maybe to have a lunch with someone you are not really used to have a lunch with. Or for example, I used to say, if you are used to eat always the same things, maybe try
something new. Yeah, it can be easy. It can be something as simple as drinking tea if you're used to drinking coffee, for example.
Yeah, but of course I recommend you to
do bigger
if you can. Do new connections, spend time with people who you don't really know, and it's gonna be funny because at the beginning it's quite easy, and then at a certain point you consider, I don't have any new ideas, and that's when you really start to also make new connection in your brain, and help your creativity to get stronger. As we said, it's a muscle, and you need it to train. So it's a nice challenge.
Yeah.
Do you think about something? What would you do for the first step or first thing?
What would I do? That's a good question. Maybe it could be some kind of sports, like go running, for example. I don't go running very often, so that could be an example.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
start with this. And then you can discover, okay, in fact, I like that, or maybe, okay, I really dislike, but now I know why. And you will dare to do also new stuff, because we didn't talk about it, but lots of people stay in their comfort zone without knowing it's possible to make that step. It's not so hard, and it really changes your entire way of seeing stuff.
And the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and then you will eventually do it without even thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the point. Because I don't wake up thinking, okay, today I have to be creative. It's like, okay, I wake up, I breathe, and ideas come. So it has to be like something you do.
Instinct
Yeah,
almost.
like
Yeah. That
normal.
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
those
because if
were
it has to become like a task, a heavy task that you have to do every day, then it doesn't work on the long term. So
No,
you have to see it as a game almost.
yeah, we say it has to be fun and you have to play with it, and it's for yourself. So
Yeah.
in a way, it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal. I mean, you understand? It's for a better life, and but it doesn't have to be something that stresses you out.
Yeah, that's not the goal, I
No.
would guess. Okay, well, that was very nice. I think we have a very how can I say, like complete episode. We kind of touched on all the important points. I don't know if you feel like there's something you want to add, maybe as a last word or something.
You know, creativity is my passion, so I could talk about it during hours.
For hours.
Yeah, that's also why I wrote a book and I give workshop. And I think we said the main things and what I really wanted to say to people, that it's possible for everybody to get to be more creative, to cultivate that skill, and it will really help them adapting themselves. And yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Of course, the goal of this episode was to, like you just mentioned, address what are the main facts maybe one should know about creativity. So it was to give some tips, but also to share some information. So we both hope that then you learned something new in this episode. Well, the book is in French, the book Libérer Sa Créativité that you wrote. So unfortunately, if you don't speak French, then you can't buy it. If you do, then of course do so. But yeah, if you can't buy it because it's in French, the goal was also to give some content that English speakers can listen to, because you mentioned some points that are explained in the book. So that's also nice to have an alternative, maybe, so for people who don't speak French. Before we finish, do you want to say where people can find you, where they can find the book, anything like that?
Yeah, so on Instagram, my name is Happy Bogart. Otherwise, my website is artforme.fr. And the book, you can buy it in, I would say, every bookstore, and you can also order it on Fnac, Amazon, well,
the main platforms.
The main platforms.
Okay.
I think that's it.
That's it. Well, that's very good. So I'll be happy to share, if you have future projects about creativity, I'll share them on the Instagram account of the podcast, which is the Life They Live _podcast on Instagram. Yeah, I'm very happy that we shared more about your story, because I think it's, again, very nice, and I'm very proud of the work you've been doing all these years, and now to see that you're like we said, creativity teacher, that you wrote your own book, and that all of this is self-taught, you didn't attend any school, I think is very special. And I thank you for sharing your knowledge, of course, with me every day, but with the audience on the podcast. So thanks again.
Thanks, Ina. I was very happy to be here, and it was very special for me.
Yeah. And I hope the listeners also liked it. Don't hesitate to let us know if you have any comments. You can always contact me on Instagram, and I'll see you soon on a new episode. Bye.